Oh, look. What's Mr. Turkey doing? Looks like he's hard at work at his computer again. That's what he does every day, 9 to 5. Work, 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 gobble, gobble, gobble. Oh, look, it's 4 o'clock. I think Mr. Turkey wants to go home. So sorry, you've got nearly an hour to go. Work, 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 gobble, gobble, gobble. Now what's Mr. Turkey doing? That's right, Mr. Turkey. It's daylight savings time. And that means it's really 5 o'clock and not 4, and Mr. Turkey can go home. Well done, Mr. Turkey. Don't you be a turkey. Remember, daylight savings time is Sunday, April 2nd. Set your clocks ahead 1 hour. And while you're setting your clock ahead, it just might be a very good idea to change the batteries in your smoke detector.
Hi everybody, welcome to Calling All Kids. Today I have a new guest and her name is Brittany. And then I have some other kids who have been on the show before. There's Brian, Caitlin, and Paige. Can everybody say hello?
Hello.
Today we have some really neat stories, and the first one is called Mr. Bear Babysits. The bear is going to be a babysitter. How many of you have had babysitters before? Raise your hand. I babysit for you, right. How many people have had a bear babysit for you? You've had a bear babysit for you?
Yeah.
You think so?
Who babysits me?
Who babysits you?
Maureen and Tammy, but Tammy moved away.
Oh, she did? So just Maureen now? Well, that's great. Let's find out how Mr. Bear does.
Yeah.
It's no use, said Mrs. Bear. The baby won't go to sleep. Mm-hmm, said Mr. Bear. What's Mr. Bear doing? What does it look like Mr. Bear is doing? Raise your hand if you know. Paige, what's Mr. Bear doing? Here's Mummy and the baby. What's Mr. Bear doing? What's he doing?
Holding the little baby.
The mummy's holding the little baby, yes. And what's the daddy doing, Brian?
He's reading the newspaper.
That's right, he's reading the newspaper. I can't take her with me to babysit for the grizzly bears, said Mrs. Bear. She'll keep them all awake. Mm-hmm, said Mr. Bear. So you'll have to babysit instead, said Mrs. Bear. Mm-hmm, said Mr. Bear. What? What'd you say? Is Mr. Bear listening? Doesn't sound like he's listening, does it?
Yes.
Mr. Bear walked through the woods to the grizzly bear's house and knocked on the door. Before he could say, I've come to babysit, a baby bear was thrust into his arms. We're late, we're very, very late, said Mr. and Mrs. Grizzly Bear as they bolted out of the door. Mr. Bear felt his arms getting sticky. You'll have to give the baby a bath, said a small bear who appeared at the end of the hall. Mr. Bear didn't know how to bathe a baby. His wife always took care of that. You're not very good at that, said Fred as Mr. Bear drenched himself in the bath water. What does it look like this bear is doing while Mr. Bear is giving his baby brother a bath? What's this bear doing? What's he doing?
I know.
What's he doing, Brittany?
He's putting paper on.
He's putting paper all over himself, huh? What do you think he's doing, Paige?
He's putting paper on.
He's putting paper on himself. Why is he doing that?
I don't over there.
You don't know?
Nope.
Well, let's find out. That's not the right way to do it, said Ted as Mr. Bear tried to dry himself and the baby with the bathroom rug. What, Britt?
No, he didn't know what to do.
He didn't know what to do. I don't think you're a real babysitter, said Fuzz as the baby started to cry. Mr. Bear didn't know how to stop babies from crying, so he patted the baby's head. You're not very good at that, said Fred as Mr. Bear rocked the baby up and down. That's not the right way to do it, said Ted as Mr. Bear tried to sing a lullaby. Twinkle, twinkle, little slug, leaving slime trails on the rug. Is that the right way to sing that song? It isn't, huh?
Twinkle, twinkle, little star.
That's right.
How I wonder what you are.
Very good, Brittany. That's good. You know what? Maybe we can sing that at the end of the show, okay? But that's the way it goes, huh? I don't think you're a real babysitter, said Fuzz as the baby went on crying. Perhaps the baby's hungry, said Mr. Bear, and he headed toward the kitchen. If the baby's hungry, what should they feed the baby? Caitlin, what should they feed the baby if the baby's hungry?
I know.
Wait 1 second, Britt.
No.
Milk, or what do you think, Brittany?
I think peaches.
You think they should feed the baby peaches? What do you think, Paige?
I think they should feed
Green beans. And what do you think, Brian?
Formula.
Oh, the formula, baby formula. Well, let's see. Fred, Ted, and Fuzz watched Mr. Bear prepare a meal of raw fish. The baby wouldn't eat it. You're not very good at that, said Fred. Then Mr. Bear offered some acorn mush. The baby spit it out. Don't you know that babies eat honey? I'm sure you're not a real babysitter, said Fuzz. So Mr. Bear carefully gave the baby some honey. The baby's eyes began to close. Why do you think the baby's eyes began to close?
Because he was hungry.
Because he was hungry? What do you think,
Hey,
Caitlin?
look, I was right. The formula was apple. Maybe the honey made him tired.
Maybe the honey made him tired. Sometimes when you get full, you get tired. Yes, Paige? Why do you think the baby started to shut his eyes?
Because the daddy wanted to hold him.
Because the daddy was holding him and maybe rocking him and putting him to sleep? It's very peaceful now, sighed Mr. Bear as he settled down into a comfortable chair. I wonder what the others are doing. What does it look like? Raise your hand if you know. What does it look while Mr. Bear is rocking the baby? What the other bears are doing? What are the other bears doing, Brittany?
Feeding the baby milk.
What are the other bears doing, no? What are the other bears doing?
Feeding fish.
What are they doing, Caitlin?
They're gonna hide.
Maybe some of them are hiding. What do you think they're doing, Paige?
I think they're going under the table.
You think some of them are hiding under the table? What do you think, Brian?
They're playing hide and seek.
Maybe they're playing hide and go seek. Well, let's see what they're doing. Boinga, boinga, twang, crash. The baby woke up and began to cry again. We were playing hide and seek, said Fez. But Fuzz hid in the clock, said Ted. And it wobbled too far, said Fuzz. That's it, shouted Mr. Bear. You're quite good at shouting, said Fred. Upstairs, bed, now, roared Mr. Bear. That's the right way to do it, said Ted. And not a peep out of any of you, or there will be trouble, boomed Mr. Bear. Did you have a boo-boo? Oh, that's too bad. Maybe we'll get you a Band-Aid at the end of the show. You are a real babysitter after all, said Fuzz. And they all ran off and dived into bed. Mr. Bear and the baby went into the bathroom. Mr. Bear washed and brushed the baby perfectly. Mr. Bear and the baby went into the kitchen. Mr. Bear cleaned up the mess, made himself a cup of tea, loaded a plate with cookies, and warmed a little honey, all the while humming a soothing lullaby to keep the baby happy. Then Mr. Bear and the baby sank into the comfy chair in front of the fire, and very soon all was quiet. Mr. Bear was just falling asleep when the grizzly bears returned home. Do you think the mommy and the daddy are going to be happy that the baby is sleeping?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because babies need all the sleep they can get, right?
Yeah.
Don't know how you got that baby to sleep, said Mrs. Grizzly Bear. I always let my husband take care of that. Mr. Bear smiled a secret smile to himself. Mr. Bear walked home by moonlight, past burrows and nests where babies and children were being tucked in and lights were turned low for the night. Mr. Bear's secret smile grew wider. Now, look at the picture carefully and raise your hand if you know. Tell me, what other animals do you see that are putting their kids to sleep? What other animals can you see?
I know.
What do you see, Brittany? Tell me one that you see.
I see mouse.
You see some mice down here being put to bed. Caitlin, what other animals do you see?
Rabbit.
You see, let me see if I can, oh yes, here's some rabbits going to bed. Brian, what do you see?
Some birdies. And
Some
wolves.
birdies. Here's some birdies up there.
And
Whoop, careful, sweetie.
over here.
And over there, yep. When you're walking by, just pick that up. That's a good boy. That's perfect, okay. And you know what else I see?
What?
I see some bees down here.
And I see some worms.
And I
too.
see some owls.
Well, that's not an owl right there.
You don't think that's an owl?
It's a mouse.
And then this, and Brian, you noticed this. I didn't even notice this. There's some worms going to bed. So everybody must go to bed at the same time, huh? When he reached his house, Mr. Bear could hear his baby crying. Mr. Bear tiptoed inside. "Can I help?" he asked. "Yes, you could hold her for a minute while I make us both a cup of blueberry tea," said Mrs. Bear. Mr. Bear held his baby carefully in his lap and sang her a lullaby. Her cries turned to little hiccupy sobs and then to hiccups, and finally, with a small burp, she closed her eyes. Just like we do. We rock your brother to sleep, Brittany.
Oh, look. That's the end.
When Mrs. Bear brought the tea, she found Mr. Bear and his baby fast asleep. So what do you think? Do you think, raise your hand if you know, do you think Mr. Bear was a good babysitter?
Yeah.
You do? Why do you think he was a good babysitter, Caitlin?
Because he got all the babies to sleep.
Because he got all the babies to sleep. What do you think, Paige? Do you think he was a good babysitter? Do you think he was a good babysitter?
I just took.
You do too? I think he'd be kind of neat. Well, this other story is really, really funny. This is called Samantha Seagull's Sandals.
Samantha. What? In my school.
You do? Where do you find seagulls? Who knows where they can find seagulls? Raise your hand if you know. Where, Brittany?
They live the pond.
Near a pond. Where do you think, Caitlin?
Wait, down at the beach.
Down by the beach. What do you think, Brian?
Flying over the beach.
Flying over the beach, yep.
I know
Usually
that
they're
too.
near the
I
ocean.
didn't know that.
You didn't know that. You learned something, huh? Well, this is a really neat story. A long time ago, there lived a young silver gull who wanted to be different. Her name was Samantha. Why am I the same?
Like Christmas.
You think so?
Everywhere we go.
You know what, sweetie?
Christmas.
We can sing at the end of the show, okay? I'll let you sing a song at the end, okay?
And tonight we will sing a song.
Yep, we can all sing a song together. Why am I the same
You
as...
can sing that song with me, okay?
Why am I the same as all the other young gulls? She asked Hector the hermit crab, who was old and wise. Where is the hermit crab? Brittany, sweetie, don't do that, okay? Okay, guys, got to keep calm, okay? Where's the hermit crab?
I know.
Do you
Right there.
do you see it, Brian?
I do right here.
That's not a hermit crab. Where's the hermit crab, Brian? Watch the speaker, sweetie. Good job.
I saw his bio and told me he was old.
Yes, you did. The same gray bill, the same gray legs, the same gray feet. I want to be different. I want to be different right now. Ho, ho, said Hector in a voice as deep as the ocean. You will be different one day. Wait and see. Okay, guys, be quiet, remember. But Samantha could not wait. She thought and thought until she had a bright idea. I know what I'll do, she said to herself. I'll buy some shoes. Then I will be different. So Samantha went to a shoe store and bought a pair of high-heeled shoes. Look at how high those shoes are. How smart and how different I am, she said as she stepped out onto the beach.
She ain't different.
Squelch, The heels of her shoes sank deep into the sand, and Samantha was stuck where she stood. "Don't be a silly seagull, Samantha," said her friend Simon as he helped her out. "I like you as you are. You are the most beautiful seagull in the whole wide world. That's different enough for me." The other seagulls laughed, and Samantha felt embarrassed. So embarrassed, in fact, that she started to blush. And her bill went red, the rings around her eyes went red, her legs and feet went red, and she flew back to the shoe store with her shoes to change them. Slosh, her second try at being different was to be no better than the first. Samantha's rubber boots filled with water, and she started to sink. "Save me, Simon, save me," she cried. The other seagulls laughed, and Samantha felt embarrassed, so embarrassed, in fact, that she started to blush. And her bill went red, and the rings around her eyes went red, her legs and feet went red, and she flew back to the shoe store with her rubber boots to change them. Then Samantha bought a pair of slippers with purple pom-poms. They looked very warm and cozy. "How smart and how different I will be," she said. Splash! One wave washed over her slippers and made them wet and soggy. Simon shook his head in dismay. Uh-oh, what's she going to do now?
I don't know.
"I do wish you would stop trying to be different," said Simon. "Everyone is laughing at you." But Samantha was determined to be different, and she flew back to the shoe store with her slippers to change them. Let's see what she gets now. So Samantha bought some sandals, and she wore them all the time. They seemed to be just the thing. They didn't sink into the sand, they didn't fill up with water, and they didn't get wet and soggy. Samantha felt so different and so pleased with herself that she walked about with her head held high in the air. She didn't speak to the other seagulls. She didn't even speak to Simon. And Simon was sad. Why do you think Simon was sad, Caitlin? Because her friend wouldn't talk. His friend wouldn't talk to him. Because she thought since she had sandals, she was different, so she didn't have to talk to him. Slip, slippity, slap. One day, when Samantha was strutting along in her sandals, she did not see the slippery seaweed in front of her. She fell on her face in a slimy pool. Her sandals sailed high into the air and sank forever in the deep blue sea. And once again, Simon was there to help her. Simon's a good friend, isn't he? Every time she gets into trouble, Simon seems to be there, huh?
Curly here. Here's a pretty curly here.
Yes, she does.
Yeah.
The other seagulls laughed, and Samantha felt embarrassed. So embarrassed, in fact, that she started to blush. And her bill went red, the rings around her eyes went red, her legs and her feet went red. But this time, that's how she stayed. Brittany, you know what? We can play with her hair after the show, okay? Ho, 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 said Hector the hermit crab. He's a big hermit crab, isn't he? He's the biggest one I've ever seen.
Hey, he was small, now he's gold.
He looks bigger, doesn't he? Well, it's been a couple of months, probably.
He looks bigger and bigger and bigger.
He looks like he got a lot bigger, huh?
Yep.
You are certainly different now. Ho, 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 I told you so. This is too terrible, Samantha said to Simon as she looked at her reflection. Whatever will I do? Never mind, said Simon as the two silver gulls walked along the shore together. Now you are different in a very different way. And you are even more beautiful, the very most beautiful silver gull in the whole wide world. And you, Simon, said Samantha softly, are very beautiful too. And for the first time in his life, Simon felt embarrassed, so embarrassed, in fact, that he started to blush, and his bill went red, the rings around his eyes went red, his legs and feet went red, and what's more, that's how they both stayed. Now, has anyone ever seen a seagull with a red beak and red feet?
No.
I haven't either, but you know what? Silver gulls found in Australia really do get red feet.
Bird? Do you
Yes, I do, but my bird's a parakeet. He's not a seagull.
You're not?
No.
What's Joey?
A seagull is too big to keep in your house. But in Australia, there are seagulls with red beaks and red feet. Careful, sweetie, watch the microphone. Remember, we don't want to hit it. Why don't we read one more story, and then we can sing a song, okay? But you have to listen. You have to listen really, really good. Okay? Okay, Brian?
What?
Okay?
Hey, you want to know something?
What?
My friend Shelly Boyd was
Yeah.
a parakeet.
She has a parakeet? Really? Me too. And since we're reading about animals today, we might as well, the last book might as well be about an animal too. And this is about Mouse and Mole. And there's another animal in here. There's something else. Actually, it isn't an animal. It's something else in this picture. What is it, Caitlin?
Butterfly.
A butterfly. And I don't think there's any other animals.
Oh.
Whoop, did the pillow fall? No, Brian, don't hit anybody, sweetie. Just put it back on the bed. That a boy. And hop back on there. That a boy. Those pillows are kind of heavy sometimes, huh? All right. Okay, there we go. You get kind of tired under these lights, huh?
Yeah.
Well, we can all lay down for the last story. That'd be fine. One day in early spring, Mole was in his tool shed when Mouse stopped by for a visit. "What are you looking at?" Mouse asked. "I'm looking at my seeds and my baby plants," said Mole. "They just arrived. I'm going to begin planting my vegetable garden today. Do you want to help?" How many people here? How many kids here have a vegetable garden?
One.
Does
My
any?
mommy has one.
And what does she grow in her garden?
We want to grow some.
What do you want to grow? Do you grow tomatoes in your garden? Brian's going to find out what he grows in his garden, and then he's going to come back and tell us. Does anybody else have a garden?
I do.
What do you grow in your garden, Paige?
Next summer.
Where are you going to go next summer?
No, going to I'm going to join my dad in.
What are you going to grow?
Some carrots.
Some carrots. I love carrots. Carrots are delicious.
You want to come over to my house then?
When the carrots come up, you tell me, and I'll come over and we'll have a salad together.
I don't like salad.
Oh, all right. Well,
I do.
we'll all come over and we'll have a big salad.
Yeah. Not me.
But
I just have plain carrots.
you'll just have carrots. That's fine. We can do that too. "What are you looking at?" Mouse asked. "I'm looking at my seeds and my baby plants," said Mole. "They just arrived. I'm going to begin planting my vegetable garden today. Do you want to help me?" Mole showed Mouse how to plant pea seeds. Then Mole planted the baby broccoli plants. "When will the peas come up?" asked Mouse. "Oh, not for a while," Mole said. "We have to wait for the sun and the rain to make them grow." "Oh," said Mouse, "I hate waiting. What can we do while we wait?" Takes a long time when you plant something for things to come up, doesn't it?
Yeah.
"When it rains, we can splash in the puddles," said Mole, "and we can watch the water rushing under the bridge."
Did they put the peas up?
The peas haven't grown yet. They planted them, though. "After the rain, we might see a rainbow," said Mouse, and they did. Raise your hand. How many people have seen a rainbow?
I see rainbows and puddles.
You've seen rainbows in puddles?
I do.
You've seen them before, too? And where do you see a rainbow in the picture? Where do you see a rainbow? Right there. You know what I saw one time? I saw a double rainbow, and a double rainbow, careful of the speaker, sweetie, is one rainbow on top of another rainbow. And that was really neat. I love rainbows. A few weeks later, Mole said, "See how the rain and the sun have made the garden grow? The peas have flowers," said Mouse. Spring turned into summer. The days were warm and sunny. The plants in Mole's garden grew tall. He planted new ones. "The corn and the peppers are still small," said Mouse. "What shall we do while we wait for them to grow?" What do you see? What do you see that's not a plant? something else that's in their garden? Raise your hand. Don't yell it out. Brian.
It looks like
He's going to go find out. Now, everybody look at this picture over here. There's something in the garden, but it's not a plant.
it's a scarecrow.
It's a scarecrow. Good job, Brittany. It's a scarecrow. There he is.
Yeah.
When do we see? We see scarecrows usually like in the fall, huh?
Yeah.
Because Halloween is in the fall, and scarecrows sometimes are scary. We can go to the beach, said Mole. We can swim and play in the sand. Then we can go camping in the woods and sit around a campfire watching the fireflies. And fireflies, you know what fireflies do? Fireflies glow in the dark. Soon there was much to do in the garden. The corn and peppers are ready to eat. And Mole, said Mole, and so are the tomatoes. But there are so many of them, said Mouse. Don't worry, said Mole. We will can the tomatoes and make corn relish for the winter. What does it look like is growing in the garden? What does it looks like is growing in the garden? Paige. What is growing in the garden?
Seeds.
Seeds, and there's something else that's come up that's almost fully ripe. Do you know what it is, Caitlin?
What?
What's in the garden? What are those big red things? What are those are tomatoes, and I love tomatoes. Those are so.
And they're apples.
And apples too.
I like apples.
You like apples?
I like apples.
Do you like tomatoes? Do you like tomatoes? Anybody
I
like?
like tomatoes and I like apples.
You do? I like them both too.
I don't like tomatoes.
No.
Yeah, I do.
The garden is all done, said Mouse. There is no more work to do. There is one more job, said Mole. We must get the garden ready for next spring. We will turn the soil over and feed it. Then we can go hiking up a mountain trail while the weather is cool, said Mole. And we can watch the trees turn bright colors. Then we can rake a big pile of leaves in the front yard and jump into them. Does anybody ever do that? Make a big pile of leaves and then jump into them? That's really fun, isn't it?
Dad used to do that to me.
Daddy used to rake up a big pile?
Yep.
And did he throw you in or did you jump in?
I jumped in.
You jumped in by yourself?
What do I do?
What do you do?
I make a whole pile, blow my hair, and it'll slide down into it.
You make a pile at the end of the hill and you slide down into it like you're on a sled?
Yeah, or we jump.
Or you jump.
But we have to be real careful of my sewer.
Of your sewer? The apples are ready to pick now, said Mole. Yum, said Mouse. Look, said Mole. The birds are flying south. That means winter is not too far away. And what happens to the what happens in the winter? Is it warm in the winter?
Yes.
It's warm in the winter?
Yes.
It's what is it, Caitlin?
It's cold.
It's cold in the winter. When winter arrived, there was no more work to do in the garden, but Mouse and Mole could still have fun. Let's make a snow mouse, said Mole, and they did. There's a snow mouse, and look it. Mr. Scarecrow stayed alive. He's still there. Let's go sledding on the hill, said Mole. Not so fast, shouted Mouse. We can make some snow angels, said Mouse. And there they are. Snow angels. Does anybody here make snow angels?
I do. Sometimes I do.
Sometimes you do?
Sometimes I do this.
And you make an angel?
I don't know how to make an angel.
You don't know how to make an angel? And go skating on the pond, and they did. When it was too cold to stay outside, Mouse and Mole went indoors for some hot chocolate. I love hot chocolate.
Me too.
Isn't it good, especially on a cold day? How about some spaghetti and tomato sauce with fresh canned tomatoes and peppers from the garden, asked Mole. Yummy, said Mouse.
Yum, yum.
The snow disappeared and warm breezes began to blow. Winter was almost over. One day, Mouse ran over to Mole's house. Mole, he called, look what I got in the mail. What is it? Asked Mole. A brand new seed catalog, Mouse said. We can plan our garden for this year. And they did. And what do you think they'll grow this year? What do you think they may grow in their garden this year? Cucumbers? Think some cucumbers? Maybe they'll put some flowers in there, huh?
Yeah.
Well, that's all for our stories, everybody. But I did promise my guests we would sing a song. So, does everybody know Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star?
Yes.
Would you like to sing that?
No, I want to sing us again. Look like Christmas first.
I don't know that song.
I do.
Why don't you sing it then?
It's the game look a lot like Christmas. Everywhere we go. Take a look in the 5 and 10. We'll sing once again. With candy hills that rings along. It's the game look a lot like Christmas. Soon the bell will shine.
And the rest of the words, very good, Brittany, very good. Well, that's it, folks. Do you want to sing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star?
Yes.
All right, ready? Here we go. This is our last song as we're going out. We'll sing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star to tell everybody good night and thanks for joining us. Ready? Go. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. Up, 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 so high,
Like a diamond
wind in the sky. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. Very good. Give yourselves a hand. Woo! Bye, everybody. Thanks for joining us.